Hello, friends. Welcome. I'm so excited that you are here with me today because I have a special guest who is going to help us understand a couple of important ways that how our singer brains influence and affect our voices. Singing starts in your brain. And of course, this is my personal bias, but I feel like every voice teacher benefits from learning some essential neuroscience. Not big fancy neuroscience, just essential neuroscience. It really helps us help our students. Because of this personal bias that I have, I'm really, really excited to have Dr. Heather Nelson joining us today. I've learned so much from her, and I hope to learn more, as she knows. I've asserted my desire to learn more from her, along with you all today. I am Meredith Colby, and I support voice teachers to create confident teaching of popular styles. Grace Gorey is here. Hello, Grace Gorey. I am also the author of Money Notes, How to Sing High, Loud, Healthy, and Forever, which introduces neurovocal method, a way to use brain science to teach healthy technique for people who sing into microphones. I also do private coaching, and all kinds of information is available on my website, meredithcolby.com. So say hi today, add to the chat. Leanne is here. I like you guys just showed right up, said hi, added to the chat before I even said that. My freebie today is not actually my freebie, but it is a great freebie. It is a link to a terrific download that Dr. Nelson has put together for you, just for you, called How to Craft a Neuro-Friendly Voice Lesson. It will also, when you get this download, it will also put you on her mailing list, which is an excellent mailing list, and I would encourage you to be on that mailing list. She doesn't send a lot, but everything she sends is such great quality, so it's really an excellent mailing list. I love being on this mailing list. Little doses of anatomy and physiology, which makes me so happy. So put Heather in the comments, and the Neurovocal bot will send you that link. Elspeth is here. Chris is here. Hey. I'm glad you guys are here today. Thank you for coming. You're going to be happy you came. I hope you will share your thoughts and your comments with us today. If something gives you a takeaway, put hashtag that in the comments. Hearts and thumbs, of course, are appreciated always, because that the Facebook thing. The more you engage with me, the more Facebook likes me. The more you like me, the more Facebook likes me, which is so codependent of Facebook, in my opinion. Anyway, Chris Chiasen says, I'm ready to read it. Do I get a sticker? Yes, you do get a sticker. You get a gold star. So I'm going to get right to it and introduce my special guest, Dr. Heather Nelson. Dr. Nelson is a vocologist and a voice teacher who lives in Springfield, Missouri, with her dog, Dewey, and her cat, Sis. See, this is another thing that Heather and I have in common, dog and cat, both. We don't play favorites. She is using her PhD in vocal pedagogy and voice science to educate voice teachers all over North America and farther, because I know there are a lot of international people who watch this broadcast. She provides graduate level voice education in digestible bits and in language anyone can understand. She's your personal best friend pedagogy professor, helping you learn voice science and apply it to your teaching. Please welcome, there we go, Dr. Heather Nelson. And there she is. Hello, Dr. Heather Nelson.
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here today. This is so exciting.
I'm so glad to be here.
Good. How are you there in Springfield, Missouri? Wait, is Springfield, Missouri where the Simpsons live? I kind of think it is.
I believe that they have stated that it's a different Springfield in another state, but I swear you could walk around town and probably pick out Simpsons characters just about everywhere I go.
good to know. See, that's another reason you're a celebrity. I personally, my hometown where I was born is Austin, Minnesota, home of spam. And I always
Well,
do say it that way, home of
yes,
spam.
I was raised in Jasper, Missouri, which is the setting, not the filming location, but the setting for the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze.
So there's that.
It is not an accurate representation of my hometown. I'll just say that.
Chris Chiasson says Simpsons. Um, Chris Chiasson, are Heather and I about the same in our volume? Would you let me know in the chat? Because that's all I can see. So I don't want one of us to be horribly louder than the other one. And I worry. You know I worry. Okay, so Dr. Heather.
Hmm.
Can I just start with questions right away? Because
Sure.
because because I have reached out to you that I'm, well, you know how I am. I'm like the poor man's version of you. Because I'm a total nerd about brain science and anatomy and
Hmm.
physiology, and I love the fact that I even know you and that I can reach out with questions and I can watch your 5-minute pedagogy classes. I love those. I've posted those in my class that I teach. I just think they're just so wonderful. The digestible size of them is fantastic.
Thank you. I need
Thank
to
you,
keep
Chris.
making more.
Good. Yes, do. Because it's a never-ending thing, right?
Hmm. Right. I am never going to run out of material, that's for sure.
You aren't. It's all so interesting. Okay, so I'm going to throw out questions. People who are watching, if you guys have questions, for sure put them in the chat. I might kind of corral them for the end, but I might not. I mean, if they're fitting in with what we're saying, then for sure, I will moderate for Dr. Nelson. So, Heather, why? This is the big question, right?
Hmm.
Why does learning about the brain make a difference in how voice teachers teach?
Well, you said it right at the beginning. All singing begins in the brain. I say that on my socials all the time. And so we tend to focus on this little bit, between our collarbone and our jaw. And sometimes we'll add in the mouth, but this we tend to just kind of focus our attention here as far as our singing pedagogy is concerned. But we need to just, go up about 4 inches because everything initiates here. And so we don't, like you said, we don't have to have a huge understanding of what's going on in there. But if we kind of divorce our pedagogy from what's happening neurologically, we miss a lot. There's a just it adds a layer of depth and understanding and compassion to our teaching when we understand what's going on up here. Because our students are, they're all up in here too, and whether they realize it or not, their singing is starting up here. And so, just by understanding what's happening up here at least a little bit, it will add a depth of understanding and compassion to your teaching.
Yeah, I love that you include compassion because it's not just about sciencey stuff, right? It's not just about physiology. It's
No, absolutely.
it's a
I
big picture.
think that, at least for me, what has happened for me, and of course I can't speak for, all the teachers everywhere, but what has happened for me, the more that I've learned about the workings of the body, how the brain works, how the body works, it has increased my wonder and my awe of this instrument, how it works. And it's particularly learning about all of the differences that we have, because we are not all robots. We are different individuals, and being able to learn about those differences, I think, has made me a more enthusiastic and compassionate teacher.
Yeah, I would agree. It's yes, the more I learn about it, the more interested in teaching as a thing I have
Hmm.
become.
It's the most fun carousel to get on, because the more you go around and around, the more fun it gets.
Oh, that's a quote. if I had a team, I'd be running that across the bottom of the screen. Well, the thing, so when you and I talked, you said
Hmm.
we could talk about this or that or the other thing because you know about all of it. But one of the things that you said was one of the things you offered was the temporal lobe, and that's something that I want to know more about and don't know much about. So I was like, well, it's my show and I'm selfish, so can we talk temporal lobe? So
Sure.
what does the temporal lobe do? Oh wait, we have some really nice comments. um, Let me see if I can do this. Nope, it's behind our names, so I guess I'll just read them. Darn it. Ah, see, I told you something would go wrong, Heather. It's always something. So Christine is here and she says, I'm late, but I'm here. Alex O'Donoghue says, enthusiasm and compassion are great things. So, and when you said that, Chris Chasen said, hashtag that, Heather. So, um, so the temporal lobe, what
Sure.
is it? Where is it? What does it do for singers?
Sure, it's real easy to find because as the name suggests, it's right under your temples. It is literally the brain between your ears. And so this part of the brain is kind of the supercomputer. We have lots of, things that are happening in other parts, like in our frontal cortex is where we're planning things, and our occipital lobe is where we're kind of seeing things. That's where our eyes are collecting raw data and stuff. But the temporal lobe is what gives our environment meaning to us. It is the processing part of the brain. And so it processes our hearing, it processes our sight, it processes sensory information, what we're feeling, experiencing, and emotions, and has a memory component to it. Our memory is housed in the temporal lobe as well. And so all of that stuff is happening right in between your ears. And it's the most powerful processing part of the brain because all of those essential elements are happening there. And so its main function is frankly to keep us safe. It helps us see what we're seeing, hear what we're hearing, know what we're seeing and hearing, and how we feel about everything. And so one of its main components is to keep us safe and apprised of what's going on in our environment.
So, okay, that's interesting. Because okay, keeping us safe in our environment.
Mm-hmm.
So for a singer, so let's say a singer is, I know. Okay, let's say the singer is with you for their first lesson. We've all had the singer who's never had a voice lesson before. They don't know
Mm-hmm.
what to expect. They're very nervous, and they're on edge because they don't feel safe, right? They don't
Mm-hmm.
know you yet. They don't know what's going to happen, and they don't feel safe. So, can you tell us maybe a little about what's happening there and how we can help to mitigate that if there is a way?
Sure, absolutely. And so think about any time that you've walked into a brand new experience, you're taking in visual information, who's there, what color are the walls, how bright is it, all of those things. Taking all of that in, you're hearing the sounds in the room, what's happening there, but you're also connecting all of that or trying to relate it to your memory files. And so your brain's kind of like flipping through the files, trying to correlate it to something that you've experienced before. And so, for example, a brand new student who walks into your studio, their brains are going to be going through that file, trying to figure out how they can correlate to a previous experience. And so they're taking in all the visual and all of the auditory information as well, but they're also trying to figure out how should they feel based on something that they've experienced before. And if they have happened to have a negative experience, particularly with a one-on-one teacher, it doesn't necessarily even have to be about singing, that can, pull up kind of a nervousness that's there. on the flip side, if they've had a very positive experience with a one-on-one teacher, they can pull that up too and have that as a correlation that's already set in their brains, and you haven't spoken a word to them yet, but their brains are correlating that previous experience with what they are experiencing in this brand new environment.
Can we take advantage of the brand newness of all of it to help direct them to feeling safe quickly?
I think absolutely. And I think one of the things that we can do to help with that is we can express ourselves in a very positive way using, good, kind words, kind facial expressions, because that is going to be processed by that part of the brain. And so if we are not looking at them, if we're focused on what we're doing or whatever, that can kind of put up a little bit of a brain wall. and and so by providing sensory information that communicates friendliness and safety, we can do just a lot, through our unspoken communication.
That's really interesting. So, okay, so when you work with little kids, like the 4 and under set, they are very sensory aware. They are mostly sensory aware. And the way that you sort of trick them into into being on board with you is that you do those things. You make the faces and you use the high musical voice and you move your body in sort of maybe exaggerated ways. And that it doesn't mean that you're necessarily being insincere. It just means you're being deliberate about how you're interacting with them. So if we could bring that kind of deliberate behavior into that lesson where somebody might not be feeling safe. I mean, maybe that's their first lesson, or maybe they just came off of a contest where they got negative feedback, or just any reason that they might not feel safe. Can we exploit that sensory input in that way and help them feel safe?
I think we can. I would, yes, rather than exploiting it, which I know, that's kind of what we're doing. But think about helping them explore it, because we can't make those negative associations just magically disappear.
Okay.
But we can help them understand, hey, this is what's going on. It's totally fine that you're feeling this. It's totally fine that you are experiencing this, that, the experience that you've had previously was real. And we're not trying to erase that, but let's make a new file and let's put our experience in this new file, and that will be our new normal. And so I love to ask a lot of questions. I tell, especially at the very beginning of a relationship, I tell a lot of stories about myself, because people relate to stories. These are the things that are about me, and they don't even necessarily have to be about singing, but getting to know me. I'm a safe person.
Yeah. And so I want to share something that Christine Thomas O'Mealy says, which is interesting. I think you'll have something to say about this. But she says, when I think of temporal, I think of time, whether it's real time or memories. Because because the temporal lobe is going because it's getting real time sensory information, but it also has memories. It's how do we know what it's responding to? How do we know what the brain is responding to?
Yeah. And folks who have a history of trauma, PTSD, those kinds of trauma, this is the part of the brain where those connections have been made, from emotions to memory to experience. And so this is where a lot of trauma is also held, in this part of the brain.
So interesting. So, okay. So in my banner that I made today, I was like, why do different people hear things differently? And why do they? That's kind of why we're showing up today. Because what do voice teachers need to know about that when working with the brain in the studio?
Sure. So stepping away from the experience and safety aspect, let's talk just a little bit about what the temporal lobe actually does. So, with the auditory system, it is taking in the raw information that your ears collect, and then it gives it meaning. And one of the things that that does, is it filters all of the sounds that you hear, and you can do a really quick experiment with yourself or with your students by just being silent for a second, and or actually a few seconds, and noticing all of the sounds that are in the room with you. For instance, in the room that I'm in, I hear the computer fan. There's rain happening outside my window. There's the ceiling fan over here that's making noise. All of those noises are happening all of the time at the same decibel level as when I'm being quiet. My brain is taking in all of that information, but it's telling me what's important, what I should be listening to, and it's filtering out the rest. That's the processing part. Someone who has an auditory processing disorder, or possibly is on the autism spectrum, has sensory processing disorders, their brain that isn't as efficient at telling them what's important. And so everything is important. And that can be overwhelming very quickly. We have the same kinds of things happening with your eyes. Your eyes are taking in the raw information, putting it through the occipital lobe, and then the temporal lobe is telling you what you're seeing and what's important. And if you walked into a room and that you walked into like 80 times and suddenly you notice something is different, that's your temporal lobe cluing you into something that you need to be paying attention to. So it helps to give meaning to what you're finding or what you're experiencing. Same thing with lots of sensory stuff. Maybe you all of a sudden just realize I'm sitting here and I'm cold. I've been cold for half an hour, but I just now noticed. For whatever reason, your brain decided not to let you know until that precise moment. Maybe it was just busy or whatever. It's doing other things. Our brains do have a limit. And so a student who has an anomaly or has a brain that's different than yours may not be able to perceive what is important in the same way that you can. Besides that, they're living inside their head. So they are literally hearing something that is different than what you're hearing because of bone conduction and all of that stuff. And so that's how you and a student may not hear or see eye to eye or ear to ear when you're working with them in a one-on-one situation.
Sorry, so interesting. I was noticing that there's some kind of machine outside my window. And I didn't want people to have to filter that through their temporal lobe. Yeah, I sometimes will use the example for various reasons about how your brain is really interested in brand new things. And I'm just going to throw this out there and see what you have to say about this. For instance, when you walk into a house where someone's baking bread, right? And when you walk, as soon as you have that smell, it's like that's all you can think is bread, right? and that lasts for a minute or two. And then you don't really notice it anymore because it's not brand new. Your brain is not so interested in it. Is that sounds like it maybe is a temporal lobe thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the smell doesn't necessarily dissipate. You're just, deciding what is important at that moment. But you probably also, when you walk in, you smell bread, have a memory triggered with it as well. Maybe the last time you smelled bread. And that's the same thing, the temporal lobe in action in a different way, but responding to the same stimulus.
Right. But really interested in brand new things. Like that's I mean, I'm relating it to the your filtering thing, that you can't take in all the information, but some people do.
Some people are not able to filter that out. It's interesting because ours too, when we are noticing brand new things, it's almost always trying to relate it to something we already know.
So interesting.
To give it meaning.
Yes.
Right. Oh. And so if you that's fine. So if you're in a brand new city, like, and you walk by a bakery, you know what that is when you smell the smells, even though you've never been there before. You're smelling, you're seeing brand new things, but you have meaning associated to it already because you have that file in your brain. And so,
Hmm.
yes, you're noticing a new thing, but your brain is trying to give it meaning by relating it to old things.
Which is why it's probably a really good idea if we're having a recital to have the run through of the recital in the same place with as many things being the same as possible,
Absolutely.
right? Even though
Yeah.
we're inconveniencing our students, or our accompanist is costing us more or whatever. But
Mhm.
right? Am I right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we could go off on another tangent here, because one of the things that the auditory processing does is it collects information from your environment that you're hearing that includes reverb and reflections from the space in a room. And trying not to get too technical here, but
No, go for it.
when,
Get
okay,
technical.
so just as an example, if you've ever tried to sing, say, the national anthem in a stadium, what usually happens to people who have never done that before, they tend to slow down. And that's because our brains tend to collect all of that auditory information and integrate it and give it meaning in about 250 milliseconds worth of time. That's about a quarter of a second. And that's an average. So, some people are faster, some people are slower. But when you're in a large space, stadium would be an extreme example. You're not getting that auditory information or that feedback back to you in that amount of time. And so your brain says, whoa, I don't understand what's happening here. Let's take a pause and figure it out. And then people slow down, often without meaning to. The same thing can happen in a large recital space or in a bar or just a larger room. I mostly practice in my studio space, which is a 12 by 12 room. But when I go into a recital hall, the reverberation is different, and my brain may not get that feedback until later than 250 milliseconds, and my brain will have a little bit of a freak out because it doesn't understand what's happening, even though I've been in that situation before. Because I've been in that situation before, I can kind of tell my brain, like, clear jets, we're fine. And do that. But for people who are not normally in that situation, it can be a really big hurdle to overcome. And so they will tend to sing louder because their brain's like, I need to hear myself. Brains love to
Interesting.
hear themselves
Yeah.
talk and sing at each other. And so the brain will be like, I don't know what's happening, so let's sing louder. I've got to fill this room up. And people oversing, and they tend to slow down. They have trouble with timing and all of that stuff. And that's all this part of the brain. It is very, 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 um, uh, let's see, it likes things to be the same. And so when you go from your studio space or the small room that you practice in into a larger space, things are just different, and your brain doesn't know how to handle that. And so, yeah, practicing as often as you can in a larger room, if that's where you're going to be performing or gigging, is a great, great way to be friendly to your brain.
Yeah. And that's just the hearing part, right? Never mind the visual information's really different because you're in a new space. And
Mm-hmm.
if normally you're accompanying your students with your really lame accompanying skills, and then you hire an actual real pianist. And so now so there's an interpersonal aspect, and right, there's all this stuff.
Yeah, and even like, where is the piano compared to where it was in the studio? If we're usually facing our students while we're and the piano's in front of them, and suddenly it's behind them. Ugh,
Yeah,
it's coming
right.
from a different place. Our ears are really, really great at telling us where, at that echolocation kind of thing, where sound is coming from. But it can be a little disconcerting in a larger space like that too. Even if you're in, say, like a bar gig situation, and you've got a floor monitor or something, you're still getting reflections from different walls in the space. And so, again, your brain is taking in all of that information and trying to determine what is important. And it doesn't always get it right. And especially in a brand new situation, our brains are not perfect. They're doing their best. Love them. They work really, really hard for you, but they don't always get it right. And so when we're training our singers in particular to be performing in spaces outside of the studio, just acknowledging sometimes that, hey, your brain is trying to figure this out. Let's just take a few minutes, make some noise in the room, let it get accustomed to where the reflections are coming from, where the reverberation is coming from, how long the reverberation is, and don't try to fix things like in the first 10, 15 minutes. Just sing and let the brain acclimate.
Wow,
And
15
then you
minutes.
can start then you can start working on technique and stuff. Give it some freak out time.
Okay. Okay. So two things leap to my mind. So thank you, because you just gave me a big, fancy, physiological amen to one of the things that I say a lot to voice teachers, which is if your students are microphone singers, you need to have a microphone. They need to sing on a microphone.
Yeah.
Regularly.
Mm-hmm.
For that reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It will still be different if you're going from a different sized room, but yes,
Right.
train their brains.
Yeah. So Grace Gorey says, wait, I find that I have to know a piece of music incredibly solidly. Otherwise, even
Mm-hmm.
tiny distractions can make me can make me go up on the song. For me, usually the lyrics.
Yeah. This is one reason why I really encourage teachers to train for the sensation. Train, because that's something that won't change based on sensory and like visual and auditory information. If we're going for the same feeling, that will transfer more easily from one venue to another. Our ears and our eyes are receptive. Remember, their main purpose is to keep us safe. And so it's taking in information to keep us safe. Where are the stairs? Where's the edge of the stage? Can I see? Can I hear? Is someone going to come up on this stage and try to, take over my performance or whatever? So in a new environment like that, beyond all the nerves and all of that stuff, your brains are working super, super hard in a new environment like that. And so if you're training for the sensation, how does everything feel? For ease of singing, freedom, you're going to have a more transferable technique because this is a very powerful part of the brain. It doesn't always get everything right, like I've mentioned, but we can work with it in that kind of way, by paying more attention to how things are feeling.
Thank you for saying that. I will so be quoting you on that, Dr. Heather Nelson, vocologist.
Mm-hmm.
So we are at the end of our time here usually. But I know I've been an enthusiastic question asker, so I don't know if there's anything. I want to invite you to say something that you think is important that we may have missed today.
Um, you know, um, I think one thing that I would like to just restate is that when we have students, whether they be kiddos or adults, that have differences in processing in this part of their brains, it is an asset. That's how their brain is designed. And so if we try to wish it away or try to overcome it, we can actually cause more harm than good in our pedagogy. And so if we can find a way to work with that part of the brain, we're going to find strengths that our students have. And it may take us a little bit of extra time and attention to learn, to understand, especially if we have never experienced that kind of thing before, to
Mm-hmm.
be able to teach them well. And maybe that being maybe the kindest thing we can do is to, even pass them off to another teacher who can do that well if we are still in the learning process. But your students' brains are not defective. They are the way that they are, and we can work in those parameters if we will take the time to do that.
Yes. Very, very lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know that the people who are here now appreciate it. Alex O'Donoghue and Grace Gorey both posted kind of an amen in the comments about sensation, what you said about sensation, a little hashtag that for that. So important. And but thank you for being here, Heather Nelson. And
I had
everybody,
so much fun.
and again, I'm just going to pop this up here real quick because I want you guys to, oops, I just made Heather go away. Whoops. But I want you to have that, put Heather in the comments so that you can get on her mailing list, her excellent mailing list, and get her download how to craft a neuro-friendly voice lesson. So put Heather in the comments and you will get that wonderful thing. Thank you again for being here with me today. Thank you, people who were here and people who are going to see this on YouTube and on the replay. Be sure and like, comment, all the stuff. and thank you for your time and attention. And I'm glad you made time today to be here. Thanks so much.
Sure.
And have a great week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.